Hello and welcome to Salesforce Craft. My name is Andy. I am a Salesforce certified administrator. I was recently laid off from my first role that was 100% focused on Salesforce. Being laid off was stressful and disappointing to say the least. And now, for better or worse, I have the luxury of time to figure out what my next step is and where my next opportunity is. And that's the goal of this podcast to share with you all how I'm spending that time in hopes that it's helpful to you in your next job search, whether that's in Salesforce, tech, or literally any field. So, thanks so much for joining me on this journey. It's going to be fun. In this episode, I will share more about my background and experience, and then discuss my plan for finding my next opportunity, including applying for jobs, networking, and advancing my Salesforce skills and credentials. Starting with my background, I have 8 years of experience as a Salesforce user. I've always really enjoyed using Salesforce. I've always found it intuitive, easy to access data. I just really enjoy building reports and dashboards that make people's lives and jobs easier. Um, During that time that I was a Salesforce user, I quickly became the Salesforce power user on my team because I liked it so much. I got really good at it because I liked it, and I think my teammates just recognized that I liked it and I was good at it, and they started coming to me with questions and projects. Um, and I just kept getting better at it, learning more about it, and enjoying using it as a tool. And I had an epiphany one day this year after using Salesforce for 8 years. Um, it was a Friday afternoon. It was about 3:30 p.m. and I was planning on actually just signing off a little bit early that day, just finishing up a few things. And I got an email from my manager asking me to build a Salesforce dashboard for him. And I was really struck by how, even though I was really tired from that week and wanting to sign off early on a Friday afternoon, that I was just really excited to build that dashboard for him. And I ended up just dropping everything and focusing on that dashboard. I think it took me about an hour to build it, but I just really enjoyed it. And that was the moment when I decided that I wanted to become a Salesforce administrator and get a job that's really focused 100% on Salesforce because I recognized that I enjoyed it that much. So the next day, I started studying for the Salesforce Certified Administrator certification. And yeah, there's a lot of great resources on the Salesforce Trailhead website for that. And I really enjoyed studying for that certification. Salesforce provides a free playground for you for everyone to study. So that they give you these a lot of different training exercises on the Trailhead website, and it's just a really great format where they give you some really straightforward instructions and written training, video training, and then again they give you this free playground where you can log into a test version of Salesforce and actually do the exercises that you just learned about, and it's a great way to learn. So I spent about 6 weeks studying, and I passed the exam after 6 weeks. Now, it does take some people longer than that, and that's perfectly fine. My 8 years of experience as a Salesforce user helped a lot in that, and I was able to spend a lot of time studying. Um, so after 6 weeks, I passed the exam, and then I recognized that my next step was really just to get some more real world experience with what I had learned. I had been a Salesforce user for a long time, but the Salesforce administration elements, a lot of the back end work, um, I was really just practicing, but I wasn't doing it in the real world. So I knew that that was my next step. I needed to get some real world experience. So I started applying for jobs, and I applied for about 100 jobs over the course of about 2 weeks. So I was going pretty quickly. I'm going to talk more about that in this episode. I interviewed at six companies actually, and it went pretty fast. I found a job pretty quickly, and I had multiple offers, and that yeah, that was great. I was really excited about how quickly that went, and that first job was a great experience. I learned a lot about Salesforce. The best part of my day was when I had a great conversation with an end user, which happened every day, and yeah, worked together with users to solve business problems, and I knew that they were taking away what they learned to make their jobs easier, and it was, I was learning a lot. It was a great experience. Unfortunately, I was laid off through no fault of my own after just 6 weeks at this job. And now I'm looking for that next opportunity to develop my Salesforce skills while making an impact at an organization, solving business problems, organizing data, making users' lives easier, learning more about Salesforce while I do so. Um, so that's a summary of my background. That's also more or less my elevator pitch that I'll be refining and using in my interviews. It's very similar to the elevator pitch that I used in my last interviews. When I'm prepping for an interview, I think that that's actually the most important part is having a really good, impactful elevator pitch. So when I'm prepping for an interview, I'm definitely going to think about all the different questions they might ask me and make sure that I know how I'm going to answer them, that I have a lot of good examples and stories to share from my experience. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time thinking about all of that stuff as well as the company itself and research the company and be ready to explain why I'm really interested in working for that company. Everybody wants to hear that too. Um, but as far as practicing out loud, what I really want to practice out loud is my elevator pitch. I want that to just be very eloquent, very impactful, because I know I'm going to get a chance to say that elevator pitch at some point in the interview, whether it's the question, tell me about yourself, or the question, why are you looking to leave your job? You can turn that question around and just turn it into your elevator pitch. Talk about why you're passionate about Salesforce or about whatever career that you're applying to. Um, I just think it's incredibly important. As I get further along in my job search, I'll probably do a whole episode on preparing for interviews. I'll talk more about elevator pitches at that time, but just wanted to mention that piece for now about why I think elevator pitches are so important since I just shared mine. Um, Another thing about my background I just wanted to mention is please don't be intimidated by my experience. But don't think that you need to have 8 years of experience as a Salesforce user to get a job working in Salesforce. You know, uh, People come to different tech careers, other careers from all different areas, right? I actually have a background in teaching. I was a teacher for 6 years before I got my first job working in software. Um, but again, people come to Salesforce from all different backgrounds and experiences, and um, you bring value from whatever experience you come from. And part of it is just identifying what value you bring, what specific skills your past experiences bring to the table. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. Maybe this is your first job that you're applying for. Maybe you come from a completely different field. One nice thing about Salesforce is essentially every type of business can benefit from using Salesforce. So whatever your background is, there's probably a business related to that background that uses Salesforce that could really benefit from someone who has experience in that area. Um, and I will also say I get intimidated all the time by people who have a lot more experience than me. And again, we're all on different journeys. And I think, regardless of what your experience is, I think, a lot of what I'm going to be sharing, what my goal is to share in this podcast will be applicable to people of all different backgrounds. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is job applications. Um, so like, I'm really at the beginning of my career search, my next job search. And I think there really are two places that any good job search should start. One is applying for jobs. I think it's just start applying right off the bat. You may get a job right away. But at the same time, you should be networking. Networking, I think, is equally important to applying for jobs. I'm going to start by talking about job applications, but I will also talk about networking in this episode. Uh, so again, I'm really at the beginning of my job search. I've applied for about 20 jobs so far, and I'm really excited. I am seeing a lot of opportunities. There are a lot more jobs that I will be applying for today and this week and over the next several months, I'm sure. Um, and my strategy for applying, I have a nickname for it. I just call it mass applying. It worked really well for me last time around. And so I'm just going to do the same strategy this time. Um, and it's really what I mean by mass applying is that I'm trying to apply for as many jobs as possible, and to do that, I'm kind of putting a minimal amount of effort into each application. I know that maybe doesn't sound great, putting in a small amount of effort, but it's really a numbers game though. And um, the reason I think this has changed a lot over the past decade or 2 decades. You know, 10 years ago, I put in a lot more effort into every application. And, it may have taken me an hour or 2 hours to really write a great cover letter and tweak my resume to really like fit the exact job that I was applying for. But again, I just think the job application process has changed a lot during the last, again, 10 or 20 years. And now there's so many more remote jobs and it's just a lot easier to apply for jobs now. Employers are receiving hundreds of applications and they're using algorithms to to weed out most of those applications. So most of the time your application isn't even going to be read by a human. It's going to be you're going to get weeded out by an algorithm. It also depends on timing. You may have applied after that critical time when employers are really reading applications and they've just hit a critical mass of applications. They don't even have time to read the rest that they're getting. Um, and so that's one reason why I just try not to put too much time into any single application, um, because most of the time they're not even going to be looked at. I think that's the impression that I get, and actually I want to also differentiate between what I call cold applications and warm applications. So a cold application, I think, is when you don't know anybody at the organization. You've just found a job posting online usually, and you're applying to it. A warm application is another story. If you know someone at the company, if you have a reference, I think that's a really good time to be more thoughtful about your application. Spend more time, make sure you're putting your absolute best effort through. Um, because you already have a foot in the door in that case. But when it's a cold application, again, in my experience, I think I've read this on the internet as well, that the cold application, you're going to hear back from about 1 out of 20 applications at best. Oftentimes, it's going to be more than that. So don't get discouraged when you're not hearing back. That's completely normal. Each employer is getting hundreds of applications. Um, but again, for all of those reasons, I think it's good to just not spend too much time on any single application. Instead, just try to cast as broad a net as possible. And again, that worked really well for me last time. I ended up applying for about 100 jobs. I interviewed at 6 different companies and I got a job right away. So that's again my strategy that I'm gonna try again this time. See how it goes. If it doesn't go as well this time, I can always adjust. I can always start spending more time. Um, on that note, one other thing I want to mention is cover letters. This is up for debate, I think, but in my opinion, I think the cover letter is dead. I think people don't read them. I don't think there's really much of a point in spending much time writing them. I know some jobs still ask for them, and so a job is asking you to provide a cover letter, you should definitely provide one. Um, for the most part, employers are going to look at your resume, they're going to look at your LinkedIn page. Those two things they're going to look at, and even with those, the you know, for the first step is an algorithm's going to look at your resume and decide if they're actually even going to show it to the employer. Um, and then in most cases, the employer spends less than a minute reading your resume. Um, and they're not going to even look at the cover letter. I did have, again, I mentioned I was laid off recently. I had a great manager at that job, and he had the unfortunate task of having to share the bad news with me. But he was, again, a great manager, and he wrote me a very thoughtful letter of recommendation. So I have been uploading that in place of a cover letter in some of my applications, just kind of seeing how that goes because I'm in this weird place where my last job I was only there for 6 weeks and I think that doesn't look great. So I'm hoping that really nice, thoughtful letter that my former manager wrote for me will be helpful in that regard. Um, okay, so again, I've applied for about 20 jobs so far. And I wanted to share more about how I'm finding those opportunities. There are a lot of great job boards on the internet. There are a lot of not so great job boards as well. So let's just talk about the ones that I've had the most success with, and I'll also mention some that I would recommend avoiding. Um, so my number one uh, online job board is called ZipRecruiter. I've had the most success with that one. I A few things I really like about it are that one is you can apply or you upload your resume and it'll just automatically kind of create this profile for you based on your resume. And then once you do that, you can start applying for jobs with one click. And again, back to my mass applying strategy, it's just incredible to be able to find a job that you like that looks good for your skill set and just click once and apply to it. Um, it's fantastic. Yeah, we're highly recommend that. Um, Another thing I really like about ZipRecruiter is that employers have contacted me directly many times through ZipRecruiter, and I've had a lot of success with those ones. And it's like you can kind of tell that it's like a form email from ZipRecruiter that they send you. So it's basically the employer is just finding people that look like they might be a good fit, and they're probably just clicking one button to send me an email. Um, but I think that it's just a good sign when they contact me directly that they're interested in me, and that uh, again, if I apply to that role, I have a good chance of hearing back from that employer. Um, Another thing with ZipRecruiter I always just think of is another podcast called Pod Save America. I actually don't listen to it anymore. Just don't. It's a political podcast, and politics are uh, just not something I want to engage in at this point in my life. Um, but it's a really fun podcast that they have great personalities. And when I used to listen to it, they always had ads for ZipRecruiter. So I always have good memories that I think of with ZipRecruiter. It's just kind of a tangent, but kind of fun, especially if you like that podcast. Um, okay, so that's ZipRecruiter. I really like that one. I'm going to be spending more time on there today. I applied to a lot of jobs on ZipRecruiter yesterday, and there are a lot more for me to go through today. Um, Another one I really like is LinkedIn. Of course, LinkedIn is great for networking as well, but there are just a lot of great positions posted on LinkedIn. Indeed is another really good one, and then Google I have used a lot actually, but Google I have kind of mixed thoughts on because oftentimes Google will post ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Indeed, um, uh, job job postings, job listings, and um, those are often really good. But Google will also post listings from very questionable websites that you just don't want to get sucked into those, I guess. So and I may be wrong about some of these, but dice.com is one of them that I'm just like, what the job questionings look questionable, and um they like a lot of these job websites, they want you to like create an account and then they just want to spam your email, and they're like not even real job listings. um so I would just kind of stay away from any like websites that you don't know or trust. um Maybe do some research on how good they are. Do a simple Google search on any of these kind of like job posting websites and just see what people are saying about them. Um, and again, really the four one three that I really like are ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, and Indeed. Um, and I would just be skeptical about any of the others that you're finding. Another thing about those four websites, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Indeed, and Google, is you can sign up for notifications. Um, and they're all going to be, just a little bit of a different sign up process, I think. But yeah, essentially, you're going to put in some search terms and you can get email notifications for any new jobs that are posted. And that I highly recommend that strategy because once you've applied for potentially all of the listings that you found on all four of those websites, then you're going to be at a really good point to just every day just be applying to the new postings, and that is a great time to get your foot in the door. So, like I mentioned, employers will often get a critical mass of applications, and then they'll just stop looking at any new ones. So, you really want to be one of those first people to apply to any new roles, and that even goes for even without the notifications. It's you always want to prioritize any postings that were recently posted because that's just a great time to apply before other before they're just getting swamped with applications. um, and thinking of those search terms, I wanted to talk about some of the roles that I'm looking for and the search terms that I'm putting in. So essentially, for me, I'm I've realized with my last job I did have a significant commute. The job before that was fully remote, and I'm realizing I really want a fully remote position if possible. Um, so that's I'm including that in my search terms. And then so far I've really just been using the word Salesforce just because I want to cast as broad of a net as possible. So basically I'm just searching for any job that has the word Salesforce in it. Um, and I want them to be remote. Um, That being said, because I'm casting such a broad net, I do need to sift through the postings that I'm seeing, um, because there are going to be a lot of positions that I'm not qualified for, and that's fine. I'm just not going to apply for the ones that I know that I'm not qualified for. It's just a waste of time. Um, it's okay to be underqualified for positions, definitely. I think almost every position I apply for, I'm kind of like I don't quite meet all the qualifications, and I won't be looking for a new job in most cases. I mean, now I would be, but if I had a, if I was currently working somewhere and I met all the qualifications for a position, that would basically be the job I already have. And when you're looking for a job, you're looking for something where you can grow into it. So it's absolutely okay to not meet all of the qualifications for a job posting. But again, that being said, um, my last time around where I had the most success in applications were for Salesforce business analyst positions, Salesforce consultant positions were really the two ones that I had success with. Um, which is sort of ironic, right? Because I just got certified as a Salesforce administrator, which there are a lot of positions available for Salesforce administrators, but they generally want you to have 3 to 5 years of experience as a Salesforce administrator. You know, it's that classic chicken or the egg um, problem where how do you ever get experience as a Salesforce administrator if you have to have experience to get the job? Um, and but that's you'll hear a lot about you know accidental admins that they call them, and people who just kind of they worked at a company and that company needed someone to be their Salesforce admin and just picked them and that's usually a great experience to have. It's going to really open a lot of doors for you if you're an accidental admin. But that's not me. That's not how I got into Salesforce. Um, so I don't have those 3 to 5 years of experience as a Salesforce admin. So I'm still applying for some of the admin positions. Mainly ones that are looking that don't specifically say they want 3 to 5 years of experience because I don't think I have much of a shot at those ones. But others that are a little more open to someone who has Salesforce experience like I have, or has CRM consulting experience like I have. I do have a lot of really good experience that is applicable. But when it comes to having a lot of in-depth knowledge of managing. Um, a big Salesforce organization, I do believe that I need more experience to be successful in a role like that. Um, uh, but again, that being said, I think like my last role was a Salesforce business analyst. I think I was a really good fit for that. 'Cause I have a lot of good experience in consulting with um, Salesforce users, Salesforce stakeholders, or CRM software users, CRM software stakeholders, and kind of understanding what are their business problems, um, and how we can leverage Salesforce to solve those problems. What kind of training is needed. I've had a lot of experience in training and user management, and all of those things are really good skills for a Salesforce business analyst, as well as some types of Salesforce consultants. Again, I couldn't be the kind of like admin consultant that's really doing a lot of in-depth big Salesforce organization um, customization and building and implementation and all of that. Like I wouldn't quite be ready for that kind of like senior admin type of consultant role. But there are other consultant roles that are more focused on kind of like writing user stories and understanding business problems, and and then they're kind of partnering with those more like developer type of consultants who are doing the work and building out an organization, building out a lot of the customizations. um so again, I think that like that could be a great fit for me as well, and then there may be some junior admin roles that are good for me too. Um so those are the main roles that I'm looking for. But again, when I'm putting in my search terms, I'm just trying to cast a really broad net um, with those. All right. Yeah, so that's kind of a summary of what my plan is for my job applications. I'm going to keep working on those over the next months. But at the same time, I'm also going to be networking. And I think networking is equally important to applying because, with networking, you're going to learn a lot about the jobs that you're looking for, as well as you may get your foot in the door. You may find some leads through networking that you wouldn't have found just from your own career search. And those are often going to be, um, again, warmer applications. If you know someone who works there a lot, a lot of jobs are found because of who you know. For better or worse, that's you could argue that that's favoritism, but it's also, a known entity is going to be a safer pick for employers. Um, so absolutely, I'm planning on doing networking. I've had a lot of success with networking in the past, and so that's one thing I just wanted to share some kind of tips for how I'm planning on networking, what's worked well for me in the past. Um, and I guess it really just starts with kind of brainstorming about who you know. Who do you know that could be helpful or could introduce you to somebody? LinkedIn is a great place for that. So one thing that I did on LinkedIn my last time around is I just searched for Salesforce, um, and what when in the search results, LinkedIn will show you people who match your search terms that may be direct connections to you, so you may already be connected to them on Salesforce, or maybe they're second degree connections, meaning that someone knows them, and then you can ask that person if they can make an introduction for you. And yeah, I think that's just a great way to meet people. And then again, um, I guess there are really two main goals with networking, and it's kind of just a funny song and dance almost, in that you're really just you're often just talking about one of the goals, which is learning. So you reach out to the person and just tell them, introduce yourself, and explain that you're really interested in learning more about Salesforce, in my case, Salesforce admin roles, Salesforce business analyst, consultant roles, and wondering if they would be willing to take some time to chat with you about that and tell you more about their experience. Um, so that's one of the goals, again, just learning, right? And and you learn a lot, and it's absolutely a great experience just to learn. It's worthwhile to meet with anyone just to learn more about their career. Of course, the other goal that we maybe kind of bury the lead on, I guess, is is you also want them to help you find a job. If they know someone who's hiring, maybe their company is hiring, maybe they are the hiring manager. Um, but you may maybe at the end of the interview you ask them if they know of any opportunities or something. But usually, when you're networking, you're kind of you're initially going to be focused a lot more on just kind of like learning more about them. And who doesn't like to talk about themselves, really? Um, I'm an introvert, so sometimes it might take me a little bit of warming up to talk about myself, but I absolutely love when someone reaches out and asks me if they can meet with me to learn more about my job. It makes me feel special, and it's a great experience for me to be able to coach someone and tell them about how I got to where I am. It just makes me feel good that someone's really interested in hearing about that. So if you've made it this far in the podcast, you're one of those people, I guess, and thank you. Again, it makes me feel really good that people are interested in learning from me. Um, and so again, like when you're networking, just know that people love that. People love telling you about their career and how they got to where they are. And most people love helping others, helping others get to where they want to be. Um, and so usually I'll go into like an informational interview, planning on it lasting about 30 minutes. So I usually ask someone for about 30 minutes of their time. Um, it may or may not go longer than that. And that's, can kind of feel out the conversation. If the person's willing to spend more time with you than that, then that's great. But and if you have more to talk about, maybe you get all the information that you need in 30 minutes. But I usually want to start by asking them how they got to where they are today. And that's, people love talking about that, and it's great information to hear. You can really take what you learn about how they got to where they are and apply that to your own situation. And then of course asking like follow-up questions as they're talking or as they're finishing, telling you how they got to where they are, asking them more questions about um, really specifics, things that you're wondering about, well, say leveling up your skills or getting your foot in the door at an organization. Um, and then I'll often ask like what advice do they have for someone who's looking for a job in that area. Um, and I'll do some research on what company that this person works at, and I'll often come up with some really specific questions about the company or about their specific role. And then just having a natural conversation with them. Um, and then almost every networking opportunity, I think it's good to ask them if they know of anybody else that you can talk to, if they could introduce you to anyone else. That's sometimes a hard question to ask, but I think it's a good one. It's really helpful in just growing your network if they can introduce you to somebody else. Um, that can be really good, helpful. And then, of course, like you can ask if they know of any opportunities um, in your area. I mean, you'll never know unless you ask. So those are good questions I think to kind of save for the end after you've had more of kind of the learning conversation. Um, so I have a list of about or so people that I really want to network with. So I'll be reaching out over the next couple of weeks, I think, and trying to set up those networking meetings. And then from there, I'm sure I'll think of some other people that I know, and hopefully some of those 5 people that I meet with will introduce me to some other people and maybe introduce me to some opportunities. Um, so we'll see how that goes. And I guess another thing I will say about networking for Salesforce roles is Salesforce actually has a mentorship program that is great for networking. And they actually have 2 networking programs. So one is called mentorship circles, and then the other one is just called mentorship program or something like that. So the circles is a group mentorship program where you'll be assigned to a mentor, but you'll have a group of you know of peers who are kind of in a similar position as you, and um, and then the other one is a one-on-one mentorship. And I actually signed up for both, and I got connected with 2 mentors, and I've done the mentorship process with both of them. But now they are connections that I have, and they are 2 of the Salesforce people that I'm planning on networking with in the coming weeks. Um, and then another thing that I'm planning on doing is going to a Salesforce networking event. I can't remember what they call this, but um, Salesforce hosts these networking groups in many metro areas across the country. So there's one in my area, and the last event they had was in August. I just looked this up yesterday, and I thought they usually do them monthly or like every other month, but it has been a couple months since their last one, and they don't have any on the calendar yet. But networking events like that. If you just Google like Salesforce meetup or Salesforce networking events in your area, hopefully you'll find a networking group, or some other clubs or other kinds of networking activities that you can join to for the purpose of meeting people. Everyone goes there for the same reason. It can be a little bit awkward, especially again if you're an introvert like me. But just know, like, everyone's kind of in that same position. They're going there because they want to meet people, and they're going to be friendly and open to meeting and talking, and then you can use that as a way to like schedule further informational interviews, networking opportunities with the people that you meet. Okay, so my next topic is about Salesforce certifications and leveling up your skills. So I talked about this a little bit at the top of the episode about how I recently became a Salesforce certified administrator. Um, and I did that again by signing up for free on trailhead.salesforce.com, where they have an incredible amount of training resources. And again, they are just organized very well. It's a great format. So there's just a lot of different, they call them trail mixes or modules, where you know a lot of the modules are just like 20 minutes long, and they'll give you like a time estimation, and then they'll give you some really good straightforward instructions for how to accomplish a really specific task, like user management, setting up a user in Salesforce, or creating a custom field, creating a custom object, building a report or dashboard, and many, 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 many other topics. Um, and again, they'll give you really straightforward instructions, and then they also provide a free playground where you can log in to a test example of Salesforce and actually do the steps that they just showed you how to do. So again, it's very straightforward, very informative, educational. You learn a lot from their program, and it's completely free. It's a really great system. Salesforce recognizes that if they provide this free training to people, then they're going to get more people who learn how to use the tool and apply for Salesforce jobs. And it's just, yeah, it's a great ecosystem. Um, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about my process for studying for the Salesforce Certified Administrator exam, and then talk about my plan for my next certification, because there's many other further certifications that you can get through Salesforce. Um, and so when I first started studying for the Salesforce Certified Administrator exam, and I started on a trail mix that was about uh, a suggested 50 hours, which may seem a little bit intimidating, but I realized that you don't necessarily have to do every module in every trail mix that you do. You can eventually start kind of picking and choosing which modules you think are going to be valuable for your learning path. Um, but I didn't know how long it would take me to be ready for the exam. But I knew, like, the first thing I needed to do was just start learning, and there's just a lot of learning you can do. You can just follow this path. Um, and so, once I got started, I ended up having a goal. I started setting goals for myself for how much I was going to accomplish each day, and there were different times in the day when I had time to study. I had some time for professional development at work, so I was able to use some of that time, and then I would have time in the evening when I could study, and then I had a lot of time on the weekends. And most of the modules are about 15 minutes long. So my goal was to complete four of those on a weekday. So between like my professional development time at work and my time in the evening, just complete four of those. So spending about an hour a day. Um, and I was really making a lot of progress each day, just spending that hour completing four of those. And then I would keep going afterwards if I had more energy, and I was excited. I was always excited to keep learning. I would keep going after that. But if I didn't have energy on a certain day, I would still try to push myself to get through four of those. And then on the weekends, I was trying to do eight. So I was really just doing double on the weekends. Um, and it seemed to work pretty well. I got through a lot of those, and it's kind of, do they have a fun gamification process where you get points, you earn points for each module that you complete, and you get badges to every certain amount of points. You get badges, and um, yeah, and that's just fun. It just adds a level layer of fun to it. Um, but as I got further along, I was, feeling really good about everything I was learning, and I wanted to know whether I was ready to take the test or not. Um, and so I looked into a lot of the practice tests online, and I ended up settling on one called Focus on Force. So it's a company that provides a lot of Salesforce resources. I think they have some free resources and other resources that you have to pay for. Um, and I do think the best resources really are from Trailhead, the free resources that Salesforce provides. But this company, Focus on Force, also has a lot of really good resources that you sort of have to pay for. So I'll tell you more about what I mean by sort of. So they have a bundle that you can buy. It costs $200, and they're not paying me to say this. I don't have any sponsors on this podcast. I'm really an amateur podcaster. But so this is from the heart. I I do think this bundle is very much worthwhile. It costs $200, but remember I said you sort of have to pay for it because included in that $200 fee for the bundle is a voucher for a free test, a free Salesforce test. And the test actually costs $200. So essentially, if you're planning on taking the test anyway, it costs $200. If you buy this bundle from Focus on Force for $200, you take the test for free. So essentially, you're getting the free bundle. And what else is included in that bundle? There's a lot of video resources that they provide, video training resources, written training resources. To be honest, I didn't find those as useful. I did use them a little bit, um, but what I found incredibly useful was the practice tests. So they'll provide a lot of practice tests, and one really nice thing about the practice test is for every question on the practice test, they give you an explanation of that question afterwards, um, and why the it's a multiple choice test, so they give you an explanation of why the correct choice is what it is, and why each other choice isn't right. And it's so helpful and so useful. Um, and the practice tests are all digital, so you take them online, just like the actual exam. And another thing I found after taking the actual exam is that the they're not the questions aren't like exactly stolen from the test, and that would be cheating if they were. But they are just really well written and really accurate to what the types of questions you'll see on a test are. So they're just really great practice for taking the test. And so the test that I that when if you buy one of the bundles, it'll come with a lot of different like types of the practice test, so you can take like a full test, but that's like 2 hours long, and so you need to set aside a lot of time for that. I never actually did a full test. What I did was this version of the test they call Question Bank, and it's just 20 questions, and you can take it over any amount of time that you want. Um, and I did the version where it would give you the answer right away after each question, because that's really what I wanted to do is get that like quick feedback. I didn't want to, read a question and then not know what the answer was for an hour. So I want to get that immediate feedback, so you can do that. Um, and then I would often like, if I got the question right, I would probably just move on. But if I got it wrong, I might take a screenshot of that question if I wanted to come revisit it later. And then after you finish the full 20 questions, it'll give you a breakdown of which section of the test you did well on and which ones you didn't do well on. And that was incredibly valuable for me because that would help me understand which types of questions I needed to work more on. And then I could go find a trailhead on those types of questions, and learn more about that, study more about that, go back and revisit those types of questions that I took screenshots of, and study that exact question, make sure I fully understood why that was the right answer for the question. Um, and so again, that worked really well for me. All of that practice. After I think I probably did about like 5 weeks of studying on Trailhead, 4 or 5 weeks of studying like just that system of um, four modules a day on weekdays, 8 modules a day on weekends. Um, and then I ended up just doing a lot of those practice tests for like a week or two. And then once the practice test was at that like critical threshold, I think 65% is a passing score. Once I was really felt like I was consistently getting like 75 or 80% on the practice test, I felt ready to take the test. I was able to sign up the day of the day of the test. I think they're offered like every day. You can take them remotely. So I signed up, took the test, passed it, and then started applying for jobs. And I actually, when I passed the test, I actually got 2 interviews the very next day. Applying for jobs the day I passed the test, I had 2 interviews the very next day, and one of them was actually the job I got. That was the company that offered me the job. I had an interview the very next day after I passed the test. Um, so so yeah, that was my experience with getting my Salesforce certified administrator certification, and now that's kind of like the third component of my job search process now. So really, I'm ready to apply for jobs. I'm ready to do a lot of networking, um, but I also might as well start working on my next certification. So I've already purchased the bundle for the Salesforce Advanced Administrator certification, um, from Focus on Force, and I've been doing some of the trailheads. Again, I'm really right now I'm most focused on applying and networking. But once I get through a lot more applications, we'll see how many interviews I get. But um, I'll start focusing more on that next certification, for a couple of reasons. One is I think it's really going to help me stay fresh for my interviews. So if I'm practicing in Trailhead, I'm going to have a lot more, just kind of recent Salesforce activity to talk about what I'm learning on Trailhead currently. Um, so that's one reason. Then another reason is, if I can pass another certification, I think it's gonna work wonders for my resume, my job application process. I think it's incredible, that certification just is really valuable. Most Salesforce jobs that you see out there are gonna ask you to have at least one certification, but two looks even better, three looks even better than that. Um, and yeah, I again, and and they are incredibly valuable for learning too. You're learning a lot while you're studying for it. You're really going to level up your skills. So yeah, highly recommend that process. Um, Okay, well, thanks so much for sticking with me through my first episode of Salesforce Craft. Hopefully, I'll be doing more episodes. I'm not sure if they'll all be as long as this one. My further episodes, I'll kind of probably give updates on where I'm at in my application process and my network process, my certification process. Maybe I'll even have some guests if anyone's willing to come on and join me. Please let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Um, and we'll see where we go from there. But thanks so much for sticking with me, and I hope to talk to you all again sometime soon.